And you see this in Iran, for example, the parts where Judaism and the Armenians are heavily represented, say Hamadan and parts of Azerbaijan, the northwest, Urumiyeh and so forth, Zanjan, but also parts of Khorasan. The Kurds were also notorious drinkers. You have plenty of drinking, but in some other places, it's not so much.
I'm curious about the mechanics of how this works. So in the first lands that are conquered by Islam, like say Syria and Egypt and Iran, you talk about how vineyards were to be found everywhere in these places. So how were these new Muslims to contend with this new reality of a religion that was at odds with their trade, with these vineyards and with their drinking practices?
Yeah, well, it's a variegated picture, of course. In some places, the vineyards were ripped up, we know that, and the wine trade withered or even disappeared. In other parts, it continued, depending on all kinds of circumstances, soil and fertility and the nature of the population, and how fast Islam gained ground. Because that's another myth, of course, that Islam fell from the sky, and then within a decade or two or a century or so, everyone converted to Islam. Nothing is further from the truth. Ottoman Empire into the 20th century, almost 50% of the population was still Greek and Armenian Christian, with important and natural effects on the amount of drinking. Because, of course, the people of the book, Jews, Christians, and honorary people of the book being Zoroastrians in Iran, were allowed to manufacture and consume alcohol within their own communities. But of course, that spilled over into the Muslim communities. In other words, the taverns frequented by common people typically were in Jewish or Zoroastrian or Armenian neighborhoods. And even today in Iran, you have an Armenian friend, and that gives you a supply of booze, without having to pay for the black market, black market prices.
Right.
So all these elements play a very important role. And you see this in Iran, for example, the parts where Judaism and the Armenians are heavily represented, say Hamadan and parts of Azerbaijan, the northwest, Urumiyeh and so forth, Zanjan, but also parts of Khorasan. The Kurds were also notorious drinkers. You have plenty of drinking, but in some other places, it's not so much. Shiraz, of course, sort of stereotypically a city of pleasure, Dar al-H, they called it. A lot of drinking, rather uninhibited. So it's a complex picture, like everything else.
Your book definitely makes Shiraz look like the place to be in terms of a lot of the over the centuries. So a lot of the
exactly, yes.
If that's what you're looking for, that is.